much, comrades. I hope my voice is clear because the internet at times is unstable. Well, thank you so much for the solidarity. And as Comrade Peter just said, there is a meeting that we're having in about 30 minutes to plan, hopefully, a big protest on the 30th of September, where we'll be calling for debt reparations to Pakistan. And more important, and equally importantly, calling for a rethinking of the development model inside Pakistan, one which prioritizes people and nature over greed and profits. As Comrade Tuna was just saying, she mentioned Pakistan. What we are witnessing here is absolutely catastrophic. It is unprecedented. 1/3 of the country almost was underwater. Large parts of it is still underwater. Now, what I've realized seeing this and reading and then visiting the areas, even when the water goes away, we are talking about crops destroyed, homes destroyed, hospitals destroyed, schools destroyed. In other words, we are seeing the erasure of an entire world. A world inhabited by millions of people is no longer there. Their world is finished. And they've been reduced to almost absolute nothingness. I remember when we were there 2 weeks ago in South Punjab, in one of the affected areas, we brought with us 200 bags of ration. And we were food items, which we were supposed to give in an area 2 hours away from the main city. And it was shocking for us to see how dozens of people chased our caravan on bikes for those 2 hours on those dusty roads. And it just felt horrible knowing that these people are being forced to reduce themselves to this indignity of chasing a car for 2 hours because they have no other means of survival. And when we got to the place, we had 200 bags, and the people who heard about aid, the arrival of aid, the numbers had reached about 500, 600. So it almost was a riot. And people were, rather than being thankful, a lot of people were angry with us because we didn't have enough for everybody. And it was just extremely painful. And when you spoke to the people who were being forced in that undignified situation, many of them were nurses, many of them were teachers, some of them were journalists, and their entire properties and wealth, everything was destroyed. And all they cared about was whether they will be able to feed their children for the next 2-3 weeks. And we heard horror stories of people, of some child dying, some elderly dying, people leaving their elderly in their homes when they were trying to rush away because there was a very poor warning system. It's these impossible choices that people were making all the time, whether to save my child or my father, whether to save money for medicine or buy food. Whether to take books with us or take clothes. Like it's, the devastation has been extremely painful, and over time, the situation is not improving, even where the water has receded, because that entire economy, it stands destroyed now. It is, the one thing that we're hearing about is the outbreak of diseases. There's no sanitation system, as you can imagine. There's malaria is spreading across the affected areas. Yesterday, one family lost 5 members due to malaria. 5, and the guy, they interviewed the guy, and he says he just seemed very calm because he said in the last 1 month we've buried 10 people of my family. But the village overall, we've buried 50, 60 people, and we know we're going to bury a lot more. So we have to keep our emotions intact, because we haven't seen the worst. And and the waterborne diseases that have, including typhoid, there's been an outbreak of those as well, cholera, typhoid. And the unfortunate thing is, there are two unfortunate things. One is the national level crime, I would call it a crime, that the government was underprepared. We had floods in 2010, but the warning system was weak. We have this real estate speculation happening in Pakistan, where people have built infrastructure on the riverbed. These are speculators often sitting in London, Dubai, other parts, who are spending, who are pumping in money in the real estate sector in the most irresponsible manner. Because today capitalism in Pakistan is very much tied to real estate speculation. Probably that's true for most of the world. Similarly, we have not seen a major reorientation of the economy to meet the needs of the people. Pakistan is a poor country with annual subsidies to elites, which amount to almost $17 billion a year. It is absolutely criminal. Not a penny of those $17 billion have been touched. And the state does not seem to be bothered about creating the capacity to take care of millions of its children who are right now exposed to hunger, disease, and illiteracy, because the schooling system has also been destroyed. Similarly, we have a huge food shortage that's coming up because of the destruction of crops. And the Ukraine-Russia war. Pakistan is expecting serious food shortages in December and January, which means that in a country where there's already 40% of children are malnourished, 40%, we are facing the threat of large-scale famine, of large-scale starvation, which is one of the most horrifying outcomes of these floods. And yet there's speculation happening in the food market. The prices of food grains are going up. The government is failing to intervene. And this is one of the biggest indictments of the market system of capitalism, which prioritizes the profits of a few people who are speculating on food grains right now in the London market, in the Chicago Stock Exchange, food exchange market, while these farmers who had their own crops for centuries are now facing starvation, and there's hardly anyone who's willing to help them. These are people who have fed Pakistan. These are people who have fed the region. Historically, this part of the world has fed the world. We were one of the primary exporters of grains and cotton and many other crops to England in the 19th century when we were colonized by the British. And today, when these people need basic help for survival, the world is not showing up, which brings me to the anger people have with the world, with particularly the global north. There's already a case that we've made for many years about colonial reparations. Recently, Professor Utsa Patnaik quantified the amount of exploitation that Britain did when it colonized India. According to her study, it amounts to about $45 trillion. That is enough to not only feed every person in South Asia, but develop a first-class healthcare system, education system, and more than enough to transition to a green economy. Apart from that history of underdevelopment, which led to starvation, humiliation, poverty, illiteracy for South Asia, we now see another devastation caused by the global north, as the previous speaker was, Comrade Tuna was mentioning, which is a climate. I mean, Pakistan has not used its own quota of safe emissions. Our total emissions, even from 1970s up to now, is 0.4%. And countries in the global north use their quotas of safe emissions by 1939. Many of them are exceeding by 200 to 300%. It is grossly unjust that people who have contributed negligible amount to climate change, who have done nothing but work hard in the most terrible and difficult conditions in the world, who are already underpaid, who are already underemployed, these people who have to work extra hard to make sure that there's enough food for their children, whose children are already malnourished, they are paying the price of the recklessness and greed of a few corporations, of a few militaries, and of a few countries situated in the global north. And this is a call that we've made again and again. This is not a humanitarian crisis in the simple sense of the term, whereby it's a natural disaster, where we can only have the sentiment of pity towards those who have been wronged. This is a political disaster, an economic disaster, a man-made disaster. We have villains and we have heroes. The villains are clearly those companies, fossil fuel companies, cement companies, military industrial complex that has driven climate change. And the heroes are people like yourself and frontline communities all over the world who are fighting back, who are naming and shaming them, and who are talking about holding these criminals accountable. We are in Pakistan, we are calling for debt reparations. Our hashtag is climate reparations for Pakistan, which includes debt cancellation, because Pakistan's debt right now, external debt, is $28 billion. And these floods have caused $10 billion of damages. For Pakistan, that's a lot of money, because we cannot even feed our people. This is an impossible demand by creditors in the global north. We need this written off. We need this debt canceled so that we have fiscal space to cater to other needs. We're also calling upon a reorientation of our economy internally, away from the elites who have monopolized land and property and wealth in Pakistan. Just to give you one example, when we went to South Punjab, people were extremely upset because on a lot of occasions, the big landlords, the feudals in the area, they diverted the water routes in order to save their own lands and destroy the lands of their peasants. They've also tried to monopolize whatever little crop was left. People are extremely angry, not only at the global north, but also at the local elites for abandoning them in this moment of crisis. So this is not a nationalist struggle. This is a class war. And in that, we will not make alliances with nationalist elites who are also now parroting our demand of like debt cancellation so that they can simply get the fiscal space for themselves. We are talking about a reorientation of the political economy inside Pakistan, and our friends are not our elites. Our friends are trade unionists, socialists, climate justice activists around the world, including in the global north, who are raising voice for us, for our people, and are demanding reparations. I'll just end by saying we have been forced into a system, a development model that is unjust and unsustainable. We have, over the past 150, 200 years, tried to subordinate our labor, our environment, our rivers, our crops, in order to meet the needs of this monster known as capital. It is not working for the people. It's not working for nature. It is unsustainable. Pakistan and the world needs a transition plan, a global Green New Deal, a global socialist plan to transition from this destructive economy to one that talks about prioritizing people over profits. And I think this is an ideal time for us to get that fiscal space, to snatch that space away from the IMF and creditors in the global north, and divert these funds towards transition. And I thank you all for your solidarity. And I hope you all will keep raising your voice for Pakistan like you've done in the past. And we look forward to working with you as partners in this absolutely necessary fight for saving our planet. Because I think today, the real utopians are those who think that things can go on as usual. I think to be pragmatic, one has to be a revolutionary. Thank you.